where I'm actually using the HDRI we just made, and this one looks amazing. It allows you to create fairly quickly and fairly easily extremely accurate lighting for your 3D scenes. I have another example here with a shader ball in Maya and Arnold. As you can see, the watermarks don't really bother you if you are using this for lighting, because you're going to replace the background anyways. So unless you're seeing very sharp reflections in your scene, they're really not a problem at all. And this is one with an outside HDRI, basic materials. But yeah, I think if you own a gimbal and you want to integrate better your CGI, you can use this method to create custom HDRIs, which, you can always download free HDRIs online, but it's always nice to be able to get the perfect accurate HDRI on set. Nothing really matches that. So, well, I hope this was useful, and try this. It's gonna be really good, I promise. See you. So recently I've been experimenting with taking HDRIs using my gimbal. As you may or may not know, HDRIs are sort of 360 panorama that captures the whole dynamic range of an image to light CG objects, and that's at least the use I give it. Normally it's quite a bit labor intensive because you need to take quite a few angles depending on how wide your lens is. The wider the lens, the less amount of exposures you need to take, but it's a fairly time-consuming process, and can take you quite a few minutes. I found a way I can do it with my gimbal in a very automatized way, and I just need to leave it on a tripod and it just captures everything I need. First of all, using the DJI Ronin RSC2, and this is an option in the Ronin app for a mobile phone. You need your phone to control the gimbal. I do not know if this works with other brands of gimbals. I suspect it doesn't, but you should check. Definitely is something you can do with your Ronin gimbals. So first thing, I'm gonna obviously the gimbal is balanced, and you're gonna need to use the widest lens that you have. My lens is a 20mm Sigma Art. Ideally you want to do this with a wide lens, and I'll show you why later, but first of all it's going to take much less time with a wider lens, and you're going to have a wider field of view. After you put on your widest lens, if you can use a full frame camera because of crop factor, I'm going to turn on the gimbal and the camera, make sure everything is unlocked. You need to connect your camera to the control port in your gimbal, the RSS port. In my case it's a Lumix S5 so I'm using the USB-C to USB-C cable. The gimbal is balanced. I'm going to turn everything on. When your camera is going to ask you what you want to do with the connection, it's going, at least in my case, it asks me to either do PC storage or PC tether. You're going to select PC tether in your camera. This means that the gimbal can now actually send commands to the camera, shutter speed, it can control everything. And you're going to enable in your camera menu bracketing, which is multiple exposure bracketing. In this case, I'm going to go into my manual mode in my camera. I'm going to go to the quick menu. This obviously will vary depending on the camera you have. And you're going to do bracketing. You're going to select exposure bracketing. Step, you're going to open your gimbal app called DJI. Make sure your gimbal is connected through Bluetooth. You're going to hit on create and you're going to choose panorama. Make sure this square is as wide as it gets. You can actually drag and drop the box, and this will capture 360 degrees horizontally, and it will go up actually to 90 degrees, so we'll capture all the information in the ceiling or the sky. And the problem is the gimbal can't really point straight down because it doesn't physically reach that, but we can actually fix and post that tiny hole that will be left. So make sure you extend this box as wide as you can get it. Then you input your sensor type here, full frame in my case, focal length 20 millimeters. Overlap means how much overlap is between each capture angle. And I roughly used 45%. That's more than enough for the stitching software to work. Interval, this is very important. My camera, it's a bit slow writing raw files to the SD card. So interval is how much the gimbal waits between each exposure before going to the next one. If your interval is too low, the camera won't be able to write those raw files to the SD card in time, so it's going to hang up on you. You want to go at least 15 seconds. If you have a very high speed SD card, maybe you can go lower, but I need to get a UHS Type 2 card. So 15 seconds is okay for me. After you input all of this, as I said before, you need to use your wireless lens that you own. You're gonna hit this button here and we'll start the capture. Okay, so now that I have all my Cinema DNG files, I can close Lightroom and we will start up PTGui. I'm using the trial version. It has a few limitations. Basically, the limitation is that it gives you puts quite a lot of watermarks in your panorama. But since we are using this for lighting and not reflections or anything else, I don't really care about those watermarks. The HDRIs work just fine. You're going to hit here, load. We are going to load the images we just converted. We load all of them. This has not been stitched yet. We did not use Lightroom to stitch to bracket the HDR. This is just a raw. Basically, if you had a Canon, you could just put your raw files here. But we needed to go Cinema DNG because of that issue with compatibility. After you load all of your shots, you're going to make sure the lens is set properly, 20 millimeters, full frame. And I'm going to enable HDR here. I'm going to go with the first option. I'm going to click Align Images. It's going to take a few moments. So we have the files in our computer now, and I need to perform an intermediate step because my camera, it's a Lumix, and Lumix RAW files are yet not supported in PTGui. So I'm going to go to Lightroom. I'm going to bring all my photos here. And what we need to do is we need to convert them to Cinema DNG, which will preserve all the dynamic range of the RAW file. Normally, you don't want to edit the photos in any other way, with the exception of the picture profile. You need to check here in Lightroom that the picture profile is correct and it's the one used to shoot. I like the camera Cinelight D2, which is a picture profile of my Lumix, and it gives you a video for flatter image, which is good to scoop up all the dynamic range that we have. So make sure every file is set to a correct camera profile. And now we are going to select everything, Control A, and I'm going to File, Export. I'm going to choose Export to Cinema DNG. We're going to do a batch export, and we are going to choose the folder. I'm going to create a new one just in case. And this will take a few minutes. Okay, okay, now that we perform this preliminary stitching, this is a very low quality preview, but we can see that basically the stitching is going fairly well. The images are aligned. And this hole in the bottom here is what I was talking about earlier. That's why you want to use the widest lens that you can get. That will make that hole smaller because the gimbal can reach a few, you can cover a few more of the area underneath the gimbal. No problem for me. I'm just going to go to projection here. I'm sorry, blending, and I'm going to enable fill holes. You can actually do this much more precisely in Nuke or Photoshop, but I just don't really care. It's the same for me. The other thing I change here is precision. I get it to 1 by 1, which is the highest precision. And I'm not going to do anything else here. We can minimize this. This is just a preview. Now we are going to go into the optimizer tab at the left. I'm going to run the optimizer. It says this is not bad, and you shouldn't really care much about this. This is basically the precision of the stitching, and we don't need extreme precision. After running the optimizer, we go to the exposure tab. I'm going to enable float, important, so you have all the dynamic range. Merge using through HDR, and HDR workflow is going to be merge bracketed images to HDR and then blend. You need to choose that. You don't need to change anything else. I'm going to hit optimize. It's rather fast here. Now we can go to the settings. I'm sorry. We can go to the, well, basically that's it. We can go to create panorama. We can close this. I'm going to go to create panorama, and you can choose here the resolution. I'm going to go with the full resolution. You can export a JPEG, which is the LDR option here, and you need to enable HDR panorama, so it exports the HDR itself. Output color space, I go with ACCG, which is the standard in computer graphics nowadays. Basically that's all you need. And file format, you need to choose OpenEXR, and you will click here and set this to no alpha because there is an alpha channel here. And really important, bit depth needs to be 32 bits. And that's it. We need to choose the folder where we want to export this. Click save and create panorama. This will take about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the amount of images, the resolution of the images, and your GPU.